Welcome to the first video in the LUX tutorials. We're going to start off with the foot. This video assumes that you have created an Onshape account and have had a quick look at the software so you understand the drawing area, the design area and the different tools. If not, there should be a video that you can look at on BriPlayer that will take you through those things. So first thing I'm going to do is we're going to create a folder to put our LUX parts in. So I'm going to go to Create and Folder, and I'm just going to call it LUX and create that folder. And I'm going to go to the folder, and the first part I'm going to model with you today is going to be the foot. So I'm just going to call it LUX foot. So as this is an online cloud-based piece of software, it automatically saves the work, so you've got to give it a title to start off with, and it will save your progress as you go through. You don't need to keep remembering to save it. So we're going to start off with the sole of the foot and work our way up. So I'm going to right-click on the top work plane and left-click on New Sketch, and then I'm just going to right-click and select View Normal to Sketch Plane. So I'm looking down on the sketch plane as if it was a piece of paper. And we're going to start off by drawing an ellipse. So under the circle tools, I'm going to pick the ellipse, and I'm going to draw from the origin, which is where the three work planes meet. I'm just going to click. I'm going to move up, so I'm just following the edge of that plane. Click again, and then move out following the edge of that plane, and click again. Now I need to dimension this, so I'm going to use the dimension tool. And if I click onto that ellipse and come over to the right, I don't want to line up with there because it will try and dimension to the edge of the work plane. So I'm going to click there, and I'm just going to type in 70 because I want it to be 70 millimeters tall. And then likewise, if I click on the ellipse and go up, I can dimension the width of the ellipse, which I want to be 30. Again, this assumes you're working in millimeters. Hopefully when you set up your program, you've set it up to be in millimeters. If not, just keep your units consistent across the whole of all the parts that you model. It just means that if you want to 3D print parts later on, you probably want to change the millimeters for that so that they fit onto the printer. Okay, so we've got the sole of the foot. What we want to do now is we want to extrude this 3 millimeters. So I'm just holding the right mouse button down to turn around it so I've got a three-dimensional view. I'm going to click on the extrude tool, and I want it to be blind. I want it to be 3 millimeters. So I can just type in 3 and press tab to update it. But it's coming upwards. I want this to go down. So I'm going to use the opposite direction arrow. So it's going down, and then I'm going to click on there to say I'm happy with that. Now the next sketch I'm going to draw is going to be directly on this surface. So I'm going to highlight the surface. You can see that there's an orange edge on there to show that it's selected. I'm going to right click and come down to New Sketch, and then I'm going to right click again and go View Normal to the sketch plane. Now what I want to do is I want to create another ellipse that's 2 millimeters inside this ellipse. So I could draw another one and dimension it, but let's use the offset tool. So I'm going to click on the offset tool, I'm going to click on that edge, and automatically it's drawn something on the outside of that line, and it's dimensioned at 5 millimeters. I'm just going to pick up this arrow and pull it inside, and then I'm going to double click on the number, and I'm going to change that to 2 and hit enter, and then hit enter again. And for some bizarre reason it's left a line on the outside as well, so sometimes these things happen. Just use the cutting tool and I'll get rid of that one. So we've just got the inside ellipse now. And this I want to extrude 15 millimeters upwards. So I'm going to use the extrude tool. I'm going to change the distance to 15 by typing in 15. It's already going in the right direction. Click enter or tab to show it. And then I'm just going to click on the green tick to confirm that. Now what I want to do now is to give this a bit of shape. So I'm going to right click on the right plane. Click on New Sketch. Right click. And then click on View Normal to Sketch Plane. I'm just going to zoom in so that I can see that using the mouse wheel. So I'm going to create a rectangular box and an arc that will allow us to remove some material to get the shape. So let's put the box in first. So I'm going to use a corner rectangle. If it's not already selected, you can select it by clicking on the arrow. And I'm going to make sure that the bottom of the corner rectangle lines up with the origin. So I'm just going to do that. But I'm going to come wide, and then I'm going to drag out a corner rectangle, and I'm going to go a little high and a little long. So we're now going to dimension this to get it to the shape that we want. So I'm going to use the dimension tool. I'm going to dimension that to 15. So type in 15. And then I want this to be the same length as this inner part. So it's going to be 4 millimeters shorter than 70 millimeters, or 2 millimeters shorter each way than 35. So I'm going to dimension from the origin to that line, and I'm going to make that 33. And then I could just dimension the top line if I want and make that 66. I could dimension from the origin and go that way. So that's the outside box of the shape that we want. I'm now going to put an arc in there. So under the arcs tool, I want the 3-point arc. I'm simply going to click on the left for the start, on the right for the finish, and then the middle, I'm just going to line that up roughly in the middle, and I'm not going to quite go to the top of the line. I don't want it quite to meet. So there's a small gap. If I zoom in, you can see there's a small gap. Now, I want this shape here. I don't want the bit under the arc, so I'm going to delete this line. So I'm going to use the cutting tool, and I'm just going to trim that away there. So what I want to do now is I want to remove all of this material. So I'm going to go to the extrude tool, and this time I'm going to click on remove. And where it says blind, I'm going to change that so it says through all. And then I'm going to go second end position and do the same. That goes through all. So that's going to delete everything either side of the work plane. Click the tick, and you can see it's removed that material and given us this nice shape. And I want to round off these edges, so I'm going to use the fillet tool. So I'm going to left click on the fillet tool. So in engineering and product design, a fillet is a radius. I'm going to leave it at the default of 5. And I'm going to click on this edge, and you'll see that it's gone all the way around. It's automatically done it. If not, you might have to click on other edges to get it to do that. It's gone all the way around. That's what I want. So click on the tick to confirm it, and we've got that nice smooth shape. So we've got our foot. We're going to add in effectively the ankle now. So again, I'm going to right click on the right work plane, left click on new sketch, and then I'm going to right click on view normal to sketch plane, and again I can use the scroll wheel just to zoom in. I'm going to use a corner rectangle, so if that's not been selected, you can again pick the different options under the arrow. So corner rectangle, and to the right of this work plane, and lined up with the origin, I'm just going to drag out a corner rectangle. I'm now going to dimension that. So I'm going to go from the edge of the work plane to the edge of the rectangle and make that 5 millimeters. I want the overall width to be 15, and I want the height. Sorry. Click on the right hand edge. I want the height to be 30. So that's the rectangle that I want. I'm going to click on extrude. Again, if I hold the right mouse button down and spin around, you can see it's gone off to one side. I want the distance to be 9 millimeters. I'll press tab to adjust it. But I want that to be symmetrical, so I'm going to change blind to symmetric. And then that's that. Put that in there. Click the tick to confirm. I'm now going to radius the front and the rear corners. I'm going to pick the fillet tool. And again, I'm going to stick with the default 5 millimeters. I'm just going to pick that corner and that corner and click on the green tick to confirm it. And I want to put a hole through here that's going to be for a pivot. So again on this surface, not on the work plane, I'm going to right click, select new sketch, and then I'm going to right click view normal to sketch plane. I'm going to pick a circle, so I'm going to change from the ellipse to a center point circle. I'm going to line that up in the middle of that edge. I could dimension it if I don't get that quite right. I'm going to drag out a circle, and I'm going to use the dimension tool. Now I want from the top to the center of the circle to be 6 millimeters, and I want the diameter of the circle to be 6 millimeters as well. If I didn't line that up, I could also dimension in there 15 millimeters from the edge to the center of the circle. And again, I'm going to remove this time, so onto the extrude, I'm going to remove, and I'm going to change this condition to through all. If I just use the right mouse button, you can see it's going all the way through by just manipulating it. Click on the tick. Next thing I'm going to do is just to put a little radius around the base of this. So again, I'm going to use the Fillet Tool. I'm going to change the distance to 1 millimeter. And I'm going to click on the 4 edges as we go around. So just again, using the right mouse button to manipulate around. Now my right mouse button seems to be sticking a little bit. There we go. Just click on the green tick to do that, so that's nicely blended in. Final thing I need to do on the foot is to create a slot. So I'm going to right click on this surface, select new sketch, right click, view normal, and I'm just going to use a corner rectangle. Now I'm going to start it lining up with the top of that radius, and I'm just going to drag it up so it's above the top edge, and I'm going to use the dimension tool to dimension it 3 millimeters in from the left and 3 millimeters in from the right, which, if you remember, this is 9 millimeters wide, so that's a 3 millimeter slot. And again, I'm going to extrude, remove, and I'm going to go through all. So that's going to cut a slot through there like that. Click the tick, and that's that part finished.